Fridays in Savannah had a rhythm to them. At least mine did. I had this spot at Bean Row Cafe, corner seat, left window, 2 tables from the shelf where they stacked the house-made biscotti. It wasn't fancy. Exposed brick walls, indie folk humming through the overhead speakers, baristas with half-dyed hair and dry sarcasm. But it was mine. A kind of sacred pause before the day's meetings swallowed me whole. That morning, I got there a little early. My department at the marketing firm was doing an off-site strategy session, which really meant we'd pretend to brainstorm while sipping overpriced coffee. I didn't mind it being locked in a glass-walled office with recycled air and that humming fluorescent light above my desk. I ordered the usual, tall drip, no cream, no sugar. Just bitterness. I was halfway through scrolling headlines on my phone when I noticed the laughter. Not just any laughter. Hers. Lauren's laugh wasn't loud, it was sharp, like the crack of a whip softened by charm. I knew it better than my own ringtone. For a second, I thought maybe it was just someone who sounded like her. I didn't look right away. My mind pushed the idea away. She was supposed to be in Midtown for a quarterly planning day. She had mentioned it just the night before. Said she'd be out all morning. Wore that navy dress she only pulled out when she wanted to impress someone. I sipped my coffee and pretended not to hear. But the voices grew clearer, half-shouts, half-jokes tossed across the table. The kind of loose talk people think the world's too loud to notice. And then I heard her again. Laughing. Talking fast. James, my husband? God. He just drifts. I swear, it's like he's waiting for someone to hit play on his life. The words didn't hit me all at once. They landed piece by piece, like the start of a storm you know is going to tear the roof off. My stomach clenched, like my body got the message before my brain did. Someone at her table laughed. A woman. Lauren kept going. I try to motivate him. I do. But at a certain point, it's like you get tired of dragging someone who doesn't want to move. He used to care. He used to try. Yeah? He's just comfortable. It's depressing. The table broke into a chorus of half-laughs and sympathetic groans. You'd think she was talking about an outdated laptop. Not her husband. Not me. I finally turned my head slowly, not ready for what I already knew I'd see. There she was. Lauren. Hair in that effortless sponge she always said took her 10 seconds and a prayer. Red lipstick. Silver hoop earrings. She looked exactly like the woman I kissed goodbye that morning in our kitchen, except now she looked alive. Bright-eyed. Like the version of her I hadn't seen in months. She didn't see me. Not even a glance. She sat with 4 other people. A tall guy with sleeves rolled high on tattooed arms, a woman in a blazer trying too hard, and 2 others I didn't recognize. All local agency types. She was in the middle of it, leaning forward, gesturing with her hands, smiling like someone who owned the room. You want to know something crazy? She said, twirling her spoon in her coffee. Sometimes I only feel like me when I'm with Ryan. Like really me? Not this version of myself that's constantly tiptoeing around someone else's insecurities. That was it. Ryan. A name that didn't exist in my world until just then. A name that came out of her mouth with the kind of weight you reserve for people you dream about when you're wide awake. A name I'd never seen in her texts, her calls, or her social media. And I looked, God knows I looked. She laughed again, this time softer. Almost embarrassed. Like she knew it was risky to say it out loud, but couldn't help herself. I swear, if I'd met Ryan first. My vision tunneled. The cafe went quiet around me even though I knew people were still chatting, typing, sipping. My heart didn't race, it stalled. Like something in me forgot how to function. Like I was a man watching his life play on a screen he couldn't touch. And yet I didn't react. I didn't scream, didn't flip the table, didn't march over and ask who the hell Ryan was. I just stood up. Quietly. No drama. Left the coffee on the table. Half full. As I walked past the counter, I glanced once more at her. She was mid-story, her hand on the tall guy's arm for emphasis, laughing like her chest couldn't hold the joy. I realized then that I hadn't seen her laugh like that in months. Maybe longer. I stepped out into the Savannah morning. The sky was overcast, the streets wet from a light drizzle. I could smell magnolia and exhaust. A breeze picked up cold against my neck. I walked aimlessly, my hands deep in my coat pockets. Each step echoed louder than the last. 3 blocks later, I stopped under a row of hanging lights outside a bookstore and just stood there, staring at my reflection in the dark glass. My face looked pale. Older. Like I'd aged a decade in 10 minutes. I had always wondered if I was the problem. If maybe I wasn't pushing hard enough in my career, or being interesting enough, or adventurous enough. She had said as much softly in the way people test the waters before jumping in. But now I knew. It wasn't me not being enough. It was her choosing to look elsewhere. Choosing someone named Ryan. And talking about it with the kind of boldness that came from knowing she could say it in public and still go home to a man who didn't suspect a thing. Except now I did. And the worst part wasn't that she was cheating, emotionally, physically, spiritually, I didn't even know which yet. The worst part was how easy it was for her to turn me into a punchline. That table, her table, didn't know me. But they laughed. Because she laughed. I took one last look at my reflection, then turned and walked away. I didn't go to the team meeting. I didn't text anyone to cancel. I didn't even think about my job or what excuses I'd make later. I just walked. Somewhere. Anywhere. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going back to that cafe. Not ever again. After I walked out of that cafe, I didn't go anywhere in particular. I just drove. At first, it was instinct, engine on, hands at 10 and 2, the low hum of tires on pavement masking the roaring in my chest. But somewhere between Bay Street and the outskirts of town, the chaos started to settle into something colder. Sharper. Like shards of glass lining up into a mirror. I took the long way toward the coast, past the marshlands and tidal creeks where the air smells like salt and pine. I remembered coming out this way with Lauren once, back when everything felt easier. She loved the low-country sunsets. Said the sky looked like it had been painted with warm watercolors. We used to come here with a picnic blanket and those over-salted crackers she liked. I hadn't thought about that in months. Funny how memory works. It waits, quiet in the background, until your life gets knocked sideways. Then it rushes in like a flood, reminding you of what you used to have and what you didn't realize you'd already lost. That drive gave me time. Time to rewind everything frame by frame, like reviewing surveillance footage of your own life. And with each mile, the picture sharpened. Lauren started staying late at the office around mid-November. She claimed it was campaign season. Her team was understaffed, she said, and she was helping pick up the slack. I remember admiring her work ethic. I even told my buddy Caleb that I was lucky to have someone so committed. But looking back, that wasn't commitment. That was escape. She didn't come home exhausted. She came home buoyant. Light, like something inside her had been lifted. She'd smile when she checked her phone. She started putting on lipstick before work again. Not that that's wrong, but it stood out. It had been months since she'd bothered. Then suddenly, she was putting on perfume just to go to the office. And her earbuds. That's one I'll never forget. At some point, she began sleeping with them in. Sleep podcasts, she said. Helps my brain turn off. But she used to fall asleep beside me just fine. We'd drift off holding hands. Sometimes she'd murmur things in half-sleep, little pieces of dreams. Then that stopped. And when I asked about it, she got defensive. Said I was making it weird. So I stopped asking. I didn't realize I was giving up little pieces of our in asterisk Macy each time I let something slide. Each time I talked myself out of confronting what I knew in my gut. And her phone? It lived face down on every surface. She used to leave it charging by the nightstand. Then she started bringing it to the bathroom. Then it was always on silent. Once, I picked it up by reflex when it buzzed, thinking it might be my mom. She snatched it back like I was stealing something. Don't go through my stuff, she said, laughing like I was being ridiculous. But her eyes weren't laughing. Her eyes were scared. That was the first time I felt a crack in the foundation, but I still didn't look down. Because you don't check the lifeboat when you think the ship is fine. You just keep sailing. Even when you know the water's rising. Another memory, the night I booked a weekend away. It wasn't a big thing, just a getaway. I found a place in Charleston with a view of the harbor and one of those clawfoot tubs she loved. I thought surprising her might help. Reignite something. I even called her favorite restaurant to make a reservation. When I told her, she barely looked up from her laptop. I can't. Kristen's moving that weekend. I told her I'd help pack. I remember nodding. Of course, I said. Next time. There was no next time. And Kristen? 2 days later, she posted on Instagram. Wine tour in Asheville. No boxes. No U-Haul. Just a vineyard and a charcuterie board. When I showed Lauren the story, she shrugged. Said Kristen changed plans last minute. Didn't tell her. People are flaky, she said. And I bought it. Because love makes you believe even the flimsiest lie when you're afraid of what the truth might cost. And now I'm haunted by all the conversations we didn't have. I never asked her if she was happy. I assumed. I thought doing the dishes more, bringing home her favorite chocolate, or rubbing her feet after work was enough. But maybe it wasn't. Or maybe it was. And she still left. That's what hurts the most, not knowing which it was. Did I fail her? Or did she just decide to leave before I even knew there was a choice? I pulled off the highway and parked near a quiet stretch of water. The sky was starting to dim. Late afternoon in Savannah slips fast into dusk and the whole world turns blue and gold. I stepped out and walked toward the overlook, gravel crunching under my shoes. The air smelled clean, like river mist and dead leaves. I leaned against the hood of the car and looked out across the water. I didn't cry. Not yet. The ache in my chest was too deep, too frozen. But I was remembering everything. Like how she started changing the subject whenever I asked about her coworkers. I used to know their names, Amy, Ben, Risa. Then suddenly she talked about the team or someone from the office, never using names. Once I said, "What's his name?" Just joking, and she flinched. That tiny, involuntary jerk like I'd hit a nerve she didn't know was exposed. And I didn't press. I didn't want to be that husband, the paranoid, possessive one. So I backed off. I gave her space. I let her lie to me. That might be the thing I can't forgive myself for. We used to share everything. Not just big stuff, little things. Dumb TikToks. Grocery store finds. The time we both got food poisoning from that sushi place and spent the night on the bathroom floor, taking turns holding each other's hair back. There was an asterisk Macy even in the disasters. Then, at some point, she stopped sharing. Started living in parentheses, these little sections of life I wasn't invited into. And maybe I was too tired to notice. Maybe I let work and stress dull me. Maybe I wasn't the same man she married. But neither was she. She had a whole separate life. A whole separate person. Ryan. A name I'd never even heard before this morning, and now it lived in my head like a siren. Who was he? Was he a coworker? A gym friend? Someone she met at a networking event? Was he a mistake? Or was he a plan? I didn't know. And part of me didn't want to know. Because once you know, you can't go back. Once you know there's someone else, someone who holds the part of your partner that used to belong to you, your entire history shifts. The good memories? They don't stay good. They become shadows. Like that last anniversary dinner where she wore that green dress I loved. I remember thinking she looked beautiful. I told her so. She said thanks but didn't smile. Her eyes were far away that night. I thought she was tired. Now I wonder if she was thinking about him. And if she ever stopped. Eventually, I got back in the car. Turned the key. Let the heat kick in. I didn't drive home. I wasn't ready to pretend. Wasn't ready to sit across from the woman who said she loved me and listen to her talk about her day like she hadn't already burned everything down. I drove until the sun was gone and the roads turned dark. I drove until even the questions got quiet. And somewhere, just past mile marker 214, I realized I had a choice. I could keep pretending. Or I could start paying attention. It didn't take long for suspicion to evolve into certainty. That drive down the coast cracked something open in me. I'd spent weeks, maybe months, burying the unease under rationalizations. Giving her the benefit of the doubt. Telling myself that every odd glance, every cold moment, every half-hearted kiss was just a symptom of stress. A phase. But once I let myself accept the truth, everything else became impossible to ignore. I started noticing things I'd missed or had chosen to miss. Like how Lauren had *and keeping a second gym bag in her car. She never mentioned a new routine or trainer. Just started dressing nicer when she left in the evenings. Tight leggings, that top she said made her feel confident. I assumed she just wanted to feel better in her skin. Then there was the way she'd text with her phone tilted away, her fingers dancing over the screen a little too fast for someone just coordinating office logistics. I began watching more closely, not because I wanted to catch her, but because I needed to stop lying to myself. I started testing small boundaries. Nothing invasive. Just observation. One night I asked what she wanted for dinner. She was on the couch, eyes glued to her phone. She looked up startled like I'd caught her doing something she wasn't supposed to. "Oh," she said, sliding the phone under a cushion. Whatever. "I'm not that hungry." I didn't press. But I noticed the text preview that had flashed across her screen before she could hide it. "Can't stop thinking about last time." No name. Just those words. My gut twisted. She didn't look at me the rest of the night. That's when I started planning. Not revenge. Not confrontation. Just truth. Just clarity. I needed something that couldn't be explained away. Something I could look at and say, "This happened. You're not crazy." So one afternoon, when she thought I was at work, I went home. I told my boss I needed to pick up a prescription. No questions asked. I even clocked out early to make it believable. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance in the quiet heat of early spring. Her car was in the driveway, but the blinds were drawn. The house looked still. Too still. I let myself in through the back door. Our back door didn't creak unless you hit it fast, so I moved carefully. I didn't want to scare her. I didn't even know what I was hoping to find. Part of me thought I'd hear music or the washing machine running. Something mundane. But instead I heard voices. Upstairs. Muffled at first, then clear enough to stop me cold. Her voice. Soft. Laughing. And a man's voice. Confident. Familiar, though I couldn't place it. I didn't move right away. Just stood at the foot of the stairs, listening to the cadence of something that shouldn't have been there. I couldn't make out words, but the tone said enough. I climbed the stairs slowly, avoiding the third step that always groaned. The door to our bedroom was half open. I could see her, Lauren, lying across the bed in the oversized t-shirt I'd given her on our anniversary last year. The one with the faded graphic of that national park we both loved. Her legs were tangled in the sheets. Her hair was loose, messy in the way she usually only let happen with me. The man beside her was shirtless. Athletic build. Maybe a few years younger than me. I recognized him the moment he turned his head. Ryan. Not because I'd met him, but because I knew. I could just tell. He had the smug look of someone who knew he wasn't supposed to be there but didn't care. They didn't scramble. Didn't jump or flinch. They just looked at me. Like I was early to a dinner party I hadn't been invited to. Lauren didn't even bother to cover herself. She just stared, eyes wide, lips parted. Ryan looked at me the way you'd look at a traffic cone, something mildly inconvenient. He didn't speak. Didn't apologize. He just waited to see what I'd do. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Long enough to register everything, the tousled sheets, the shirts on the floor, the scent of her perfume in the air. It was like seeing a crime scene and recognizing your own belongings as evidence. Then I turned. I didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. I just walked back down the stairs, grabbed my keys off the hook, and left. I didn't stop driving until I hit the edge of town. I pulled into a gas station and parked beside the ice machine, my hands still locked around the steering wheel. My chest was tight, but I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I just kept replaying their faces. The calm. The stillness. Like I'd interrupted a conversation they planned to continue as soon as I left. It wasn't just betrayal, it was familiarity. Comfort. Like this wasn't the first time. And maybe that's what broke me the most. That they didn't react. That there was no panic. Just the silent acknowledgement that everything I feared had already been true for a long time. I don't know how long I sat in that parking lot. Long enough for the sun to shift. Long enough for a kid to walk by with a soda and stare at me like I was a statue. Eventually, I drove. Not home. Not yet. I checked into a motel on the edge of the highway. One of those old ones with buzzing neon signs and carpet that smells like mildew and bleach. The guy at the front desk didn't even ask for a reason. Just handed me a key and nodded. Room 204. Second floor. One window. One chair. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall for what felt like hours. My phone buzzed a few times. I didn't check it. Then it buzzed again. I picked it up. Lauren, 6 unread messages. They started with, "James, I'm so sorry." Then, "Please let me explain." Then, "It's not what you think." Then she tried to call. I let it ring out. There was nothing left to hear. The last message came at 11:43 p.m. I don't even know who I am right now. Please don't shut me out. I turned off the phone. I didn't reply. I didn't rage. I didn't drink or smash anything. I just laid back on the bed, stared at the popcorn ceiling, and thought. So this is what it feels like. Not heartbreak. Not devastation. Just confirmation. That moment when the illusion ends. And the truth, ugly, obvious, inevitable, finally makes itself comfortable in your chest. In the days that followed, I became invisible. Not to myself, but to her. Or maybe she thought I would be. That if she didn't see me, if she couldn't talk to me, I'd stop existing. I wouldn't blame her for hoping I'd disappear. It would have made things easier for her, wouldn't it? I stayed at the motel longer than I intended. At first, I told myself it was just for the night, just until I figured out what came next. But each morning I woke up in that cramped room, with its buzzing air unit and its faint smell of bleach, I realized I didn't miss our home. I missed who I thought lived there with me. But I didn't miss the house itself or the routines that had become more about pretending than living. I kept the curtains closed most of the time. The light was too harsh. Everything felt too exposed. I didn't want exposure. I wanted silence. And I got it until my phone came back on. When I powered it up, it took less than 5 minutes for the flood to begin. First were the texts. Lauren must have typed them all at once and hit send like a machine G***N. James? Please. I know you're hurt. I made a horrible mistake. It wasn't planned. Please just talk to me. Please. There were more. A lot more. One after another. They came with an urgency that reeked of guilt, not regret. There's a difference. Guilt is about getting caught. Regret is about what you've done. Her words were desperate, but not for me. She was pleading with the version of me that still didn't know. The version she'd been able to lie to. I didn't answer. By the second day, the tone changed. Ignoring me isn't going to help either of us. You're being unfair now. You don't know the whole story. Unfair. That word sat with me. It tasted like rust. She was framing herself as the victim in a situation where I was the one blindsided. Her betrayal somehow had become something I was doing to her. That's how cheaters talk when the mask slips. They deflect. They distort. They rewrite timelines in real time, hoping you'll forget the parts that don't serve their narrative. She called again. I let it ring. Voicemail after voicemail. Some short. Others long and rambling. I listened to the first two. That was a mistake. James? I know you saw something that hurt you. And I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. But please don't disappear. You're still my husband. I still love you. Things got confusing. You pulled away. I didn't know how to reach you anymore. I stopped it there. I didn't need to hear how this was somehow my fault. That my silence, my exhaustion, my attempts to hold things together had somehow created the room for Ryan to crawl into her life. I threw the phone across the bed. It bounced once and landed on the floor. The screen lit up with another message. Can we please talk in person? I'll explain everything. You deserve that. I did deserve something. But not explanations that arrived after the damage was done. I didn't want to debrief. I wasn't looking for closure from her mouth. I'd already seen the truth with my own eyes. 2 days later, I came back from grabbing fast food to find a note taped to the motel door. Folded in half, my name written on the front in her handwriting. I stared at it for a full minute before peeling it off. Inside was a letter. No envelope. Just 3 pages, handwritten, rushed. Her lines were slanted and uneven, like she'd been crying while writing it. Maybe she had. Maybe that was supposed to matter. James? I know you don't want to hear from me right now. I understand that. But I can't let this end without trying to explain. Not because I think you'll forgive me, but because you should at least hear the truth. I didn't go looking for Ryan. I didn't plan any of this. We were working late. We connected. At first, it was emotional, just talking. I was feeling lost and he listened. And I know that doesn't excuse what I did. But it didn't start with an affair. I kept thinking I'd stop. That it would pass. But I didn't know how to tell you that I was drowning. That I felt alone even when we were in the same room. That I missed you even while lying next to you. And then I stopped missing you. I don't know when exactly that shift happened. But by the time I realized it, I think I had already let go. And that's my fault. But James, I never stopped caring. I didn't want to hurt you. I was weak. I made choices I can't take back. But I don't want this to be the end of us. Please, just talk to me. I'm sorry, Lauren. It wasn't an apology. Not really. It was a confessional from someone trying to absolve themselves. She admitted what she had to. Nothing more. No details. No full ownership. Just enough vulnerability to make it feel like repentance. I read it once. Slowly. Then folded it back up and dropped it in the trash. Later, when I went out to toss my food wrappers, I made sure that letter went with them. That same night, I got a text from her sister, Maggie. We'd never been especially close, but she knew something was up. Hey James. I don't want to get in the middle of anything. But I just want to say I'm sorry. I didn't know what Lauren was doing. If I had, I would have told you. I'm here if you ever need to talk. That was the first moment I realized not everyone had been complicit. I had assumed the whole world was in on it but me. But maybe not. Maybe Lauren had been hiding this even from her own family. Or maybe she hadn't. Maybe Maggie just didn't want to be dragged into the wreckage. The next morning I started packing. Not to go home, just to find somewhere else. A longer-term place. I wasn't ready to see Lauren, and I sure as hell wasn't ready to sleep in that bed again. But I couldn't stay in that motel much longer. Before I left, I walked across the parking lot to the trash bin. Threw out the empty cup of cold coffee I'd been nursing since sunrise. I paused for a second. Wondered if I should have kept the letter. For documentation. For court. For proof. But proof of what? That she was sorry? That she knew what she was doing? I didn't need a written record of her betrayal. I had memories. I had the look in her eyes when I opened that door. I had the silence that followed. The way she didn't even say my name when I left. You can't edit silence. Later that day, she tried one last time. A voice message. I didn't answer, but I played it. Just once. James, I'm not asking for forgiveness. Not now. Maybe not ever. But please don't think I didn't love you. I did. I still do. I just got lost. I lost myself. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I don't know how to be the person you need anymore. I'm sorry. That one stuck with me. Not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't. Not once did she say she regretted what she did. Only that she regretted being caught in it. That was the final shift. The moment I realized I wasn't just grieving a betrayal. I was grieving a person who no longer existed. The woman I married was gone. In her place was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who could lie to my face while holding my hand. Someone who found meaning in someone else's bed and only remembered I existed when the lights came on. I didn't respond to the voice message. I just turned my phone off again and slid it into the drawer of the nightstand. I wouldn't be needing it for a while. It was a Thursday when the phone rang. Mid-morning. I was sitting by the window of the rental unit I'd found just outside of Wilmington. Nothing special, just a small one-bedroom above an old bookstore. The kind of place that smelled like paper and cedar. I'd only moved in 2 days earlier, but I already felt more at home than I had in months. I was drinking burnt coffee from a chipped mug, letting the steam fog the glass as I watched the light filter through a tangle of oaks across the street. There was a quiet to this town that I hadn't realized I needed. No one knew me. No one looked at me with pity. I was just another guy who kept to himself. When my phone rang, I almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar. No name, just a Savannah area code. I stared at it for a few seconds, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then I answered. A pause. Then a voice I didn't recognize. James? I didn't respond. Not right away. But my silence didn't slow him down. It's Ryan. The name dropped into my stomach like a stone. I figured you'd probably hang up if I didn't say it up front, he said. His voice was relaxed. Too relaxed. Confident, like a man who thought he was doing the right thing by calling. I didn't hang up. I should have. But some sick part of me wanted to hear what he had to say. Not for closure. Not for understanding. Just curiosity. Morbid, maybe, but real. I didn't call to start anything, he said. I thought it was time we spoke. Man to man. Man to man. As if there was anything remotely equal between us. You don't have to say anything, he added quickly. Just listen if that's easier. I get it. He paused, like he wanted to give me a chance to scream or curse. But I stayed quiet. I know how this looks. And yeah, I get it. I'm the villain in this story. The guy who wrecked your marriage. The guy who took what wasn't his. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm some monster. It wasn't like that. I let out a breath. Not quite a sigh. More like the release of something I didn't realize I was holding. He continued. Lauren and we didn't plan for any of this. It just happened. You probably think that's bullsh*t, but it's true. We connected. Emotionally. At first, that's all it was. Of course. It was long talks. Late nights. She was unhappy. You probably knew that somewhere deep down. I'm not saying that makes what we did right. It doesn't. But it wasn't malicious. He said it like he was narrating a breakup from a Netflix drama. Like he was giving me the mature version of his infidelity. You're probably wondering why I'm calling, he said. Truth is, Lauren's a mess right now. I'm not calling to defend her. I just wanted you to know that. She's not sleeping. She's not eating. She knows she hurt you. I closed my eyes. She still loves you, he added, his voice softer now. Even if it doesn't look that way. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Quietly. Bitterly. She loves me. I finally said the first words I'd spoken since picking up. Yeah, he said. She does. There was a long pause on the line. Then I asked, so where does that leave you? He was silent for a beat. I care about her, he said carefully. But I'm not trying to replace you. That's not what this is. I wanted to ask him what exactly he thought it was. A performance? A life lesson? A passionate detour on the road to self-discovery? Instead, I said nothing. I just let the silence sit there between us like smoke. Look, he said eventually, I didn't call to fight. I just wanted to clear the air. I know this doesn't change anything. But I didn't want you thinking this was some reckless, thoughtless thing. We didn't mean for it to happen. I almost hung up right then. The audacity. The delusion of that line, we didn't mean for it to happen. Like their clothes fell off by accident. Like betrayal was a slippery floor they both happened to trip on. I meant what I said, he added quickly. I'm not your enemy. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. You knew she was married, I said. My voice was low but steady. You knew. I did. And you still made the choice. I know, he said. I'm not proud of it. But he didn't sound ashamed either. That was the thing. His voice had this flat quality to it. Like he was reading a script he'd already practiced in the mirror. Like he'd decided that if he sounded mature enough, reasonable enough, he could walk away from this conversation with his hands clean. I just thought you deserved honesty, he added. I almost laughed again. You think this call is honesty? I asked. You think saying it out loud makes it noble? He didn't answer right away. I just thought you deserved more than silence, he said finally. No, I replied. What I deserved was a partner who didn't make me the last to know. There was a heaviness to those words that surprised even me. I don't need a sermon, I continued. And I don't need you playing messenger for Lauren. If she wants to talk to me, she knows where I am. You? You don't belong in this conversation. He exhaled. I could hear him shifting, like he wasn't used to not being in control. I guess I deserve that, he said. You deserve worse, I replied. But I'm not going to give it to you. Because I'm not like you. Silence. I hope it was worth it, I said, and ended the call. I let the phone sit face down on the table. Didn't touch it for the rest of the day. I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I just sat there for a while, listening to the wind outside and the creak of the old floorboards beneath me. It was strange how quiet the world had become. No more checking messages. No more double-guessing glances. No more tiptoeing around the mood in the room. No more pretending. That night, I packed a few essentials and took a drive along the water. The town was still unfamiliar, but that was the point. I didn't want to see places that reminded me of her. I didn't want to walk past restaurants we'd eaten at or shops where she'd pointed out home decor we never bought. I wanted new air. New pavement. New silence. I pulled off near a quiet pier and sat on the bench overlooking the dark water. There were no boats. No voices. Just the occasional gust of wind and the gentle slap of water against the posts. And for the first time in weeks, I breathed without feeling like my lungs had to ask permission. There was still pain. Still questions. Still anger buried beneath layers I hadn't even begged *n to unearth. But there was also something else. Distance. Not just from her. From the noise. The chaos. The spirals of doubt and shame. Ryan's voice was already fading. A shadow that belonged to someone else's movie. I wasn't in that story anymore. I was writing something different now. And for the first time in a long time, I had no idea what the next page held. But I knew it wouldn't have her in it. And that felt like a beginning. A month passed before I returned. The house stood unchanged, but it felt like a replica of my former life, hollow, too quiet. Lauren wasn't home. I let myself in, collected the essentials, documents, clothes, some photos I still cared about. I left my wedding ring on the pillow, her work badge beside it, and a note that simply said, I was here. And now I'm not. I dropped my keys in the mailbox on the way out. I didn't linger. I didn't look back. Life in the coastal town unfolded slowly. I took a job at a local auto shop. My apartment above the bookstore smelled like old pages and clean laundry. In the evenings, I sat by the window with tea, not waiting for messages or apologies. I didn't forgive her, but I stopped needing to. I stopped explaining myself to ghosts. No more chasing closure. I found peace in silence. I didn't leave her in anger. I left her behind. And that made all the difference.